Hello and welcome to the special show PM's Three Nation Tour. I'm Gautam Roy, and yes, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is leaving for his first foreign trip in 2016 starting the 30th of March. Now his first stop is in Brussels, that's in Belgium, where he will attend the India-European Union Summit. He will then head to the US capital to attend the two-day Nuclear Security Summit. He'll be participating, in fact, in both. And leaders of more than 50 countries are expected to attend this meet being hosted by US President Barack Obama. The PM is expected to hold a few bilaterals as well, with speculation high over whether another likely meeting will take place between him and Pak Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. And on the 2nd of April, Prime Minister Modi's Air India One will touch down in the Saudi capital Riyadh for a two-day bilateral visit there as well. So, the PM's first stop is Brussels, where brutal bombings took place just a week ago. How to counter terror will form a large part of the PM's agenda at all the three stops he's making. It's going to be a common running theme. But what else could dominate his to-do list in all these three places? We have experts in our studio to talk about it. We have Shashank, former Foreign Secretary, so welcome. And we also have KV Prasad, Associate Editor of the Tribune. First, I'll begin with you, Shashank. What do you make of these three stops that the Prime Minister is making? There's terror that's to be talked about with the attacks that have been taking place, especially in Brussels. That's his first stop. And then what's happened in Lahore as well. You know, half of the people killed in that attack are children. So what could be the common stream in terms of ensuring that there's a concerted action towards tackling terror?
Well, first of all, India has the longest experience of tackling terrorism. And it has been sensitizing other countries about the effects of terrorism, how it hurts societies which are particularly democratic.
Right.
This was not really regarded very seriously by the Western countries, and they always talked about improving relations between India and Pakistan, and especially bilateral talks on Kashmir and other bilateral issues. Now, I think with the emergence of Islamic State and their firm statements, use of modern technology, cyberspace, etc., to go back to the very fundamental Islam and use very brutal means to achieve the results. Especially they are doing it to the Western societies, to the Islamic society, Islamic countries, and then of course over a period of time they have this claim that they would like to take over some nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction in their possession in order to increase their rule over the Khorasan area and other areas.
Yes.
So I think this is going to be a subject which will remain constant in all the talks which will take place in the three places that Prime Minister would be visiting. Of course, in the European Union, there is also this agenda item of the free trade area agreement, the FTA, which has been talked about for a long time, and the strategic partnership which has been set up between the European Union and India. European Union perhaps would also like to discuss about the defense related matters with India in order to increase better defense cooperation, including the cyberspace cooperation, modern technologies, etc. In America, of course, I think President Obama's almost last important engagement before he or the parties there get into the election mode. Therefore, that would be perhaps President Obama would like to leave his impression on the nuclear issues which are afflicting the world, and especially that the US had agreed to give India an important position as a country of high science and technology skills in the nuclear field, and which had very high level of safety measures. So they would like to perhaps further work on that, take India's advice on these issues. At the same time, there would be pressure from countries like Pakistan who would like to be treated on par with India, and to request America to give them about the same kind of deal, even though Pakistan has been sending out terrorists everywhere. There are non-state actors who have claimed that they can get access to the Pakistani nuclear weapons, and Pakistan also has its own.
To what extent, KV, do you think what Shashank is saying, that Pakistan is known to be a bit of a problem where especially issues of nuclear security are concerned? But to what extent is Prime Minister Modi likely to again stress that point. He's done that in the past as well. But again, naming and shaming Pakistan at the stage where it seems that Pakistan is cooperating with India on the front of tackling terror, at least bringing the perpetrators of Pathankot to justice. How prudent would that be? Do you think the PM will go down that road?
Well, I think there'll be two very distinct streams. One, of course, the bilateral issue on terrorism, because
Yes.
India is very clear that the perpetrators of the Mumbai terror attacks and also subsequent now the Pathankot attacks should be brought to book. And we right now, as we speak, we have the joint investigation team from Pakistan currently in Delhi today.
Yes.
And tomorrow it reaches Pathankot, where it is going to have whatever mechanism that has been for the first time we have a multi-party team coming to India from Pakistan, including the intelligence setup there. That's a crucial thing, and India wants to allow that kind of atmosphere where you allow it, so that the world doesn't really. But I think the larger issue, which you always flagged when you talk of the nuclear thing, and I think what former Foreign Secretary alluded to is Pakistan has been wanting a parity with India for a long time, ever since India got the nuclear deal from the US
as well.
And I think it's been a lobby. They have been pressuring US and Washington for a long time and trying to reach the world capitals wherever they are. And probably at some point of time, I think Foreign Secretary Shashank would agree, China was a factor which came into it. And China, then when we had this grandfathering of the two nuclear reactors that Pakistan has. So all these are issues that keep cropping up. But on the larger context, when you look at the Washington summit, I think there's one more important, significantly, it will be Prime Minister Modi's first NSS summit and President Obama's last NSS summit.
Right.
So there's big takeaways for both of them, which should be there. There'll be an issue of, as Ambassador Shashank mentioned, Mr. Obama would like to leave his imprint on the world because this is his last year in office, and PM would be having his own vision.
Yes.
Kind of
Yes.
unfolding between a world stage where almost 50 world leaders will be assembling. But I think there is a slight shadow of Russia not coming in, probably. That's
Okay.
what we heard.
As far as Prime Minister Modi is concerned, it's also been said by the MEA that he might make some proposals or announcements even at that meet in Washington. Can we speculate as to what they could be?
Well, India has always expressed its interest in joining on the international regimes on nuclear security. So perhaps India would again request all the member countries to make sure that India, as a country which has already been accepted in the NSG and other regimes, then they should be allowed also to be in the Wassenaar agreement and other agreements with regard to the nuclear missile capabilities. The other thing would be that yes, India has promised to set up several nuclear power plants, and they are getting delayed because of these issues of the insurance and things of that kind. And I am quite sure that that will be one issue which perhaps the Western countries which are interested in going ahead with the nuclear plants, they would like to know what is India's position. Apart from that, India has a long-term agenda of going for universal nuclear disarmament. So perhaps they will put up something on that also, that whatever nuclear security summit takes place, it should have overall agenda, long-term agenda of a nuclear disarmament, and secondly to make sure that nuclear weapons don't fall into the
Does that
hands.
fit within the ambit of this this meeting?
Well, in the sense that, they are discussing nuclear security issues, and the best nuclear security
Is not to have any nuclear
would be
weapons.
ultimately to go in for keep reducing them and ultimately go for complete disarmament. In the meantime, of course, I mean, we have the other major issues that, as Mr. Prashad said, that Russia may not be coming, and there are these difficulties with regard to Syria and the leftover effects of Ukraine, that there will be several issues among the developed countries themselves, among Russia and the other West.
I'm glad you mentioned Syria because his other two destinations, they too have huge concerns about what's happening in Syria and what's happened in Brussels itself. And Riyadh, of course, is part, it has formed a coalition to battle the Islamic State as well. So do you feel that there is ample justification now, and the Prime Minister can really put across a strong point that not to fight this particular force, this enemy, in just parts and just come together with a complete, comprehensive, cohesive force?
I think if you remember, for a long time, India has been, for the last 2 years, especially Prime Minister Modi has been talking on the world stage. India has been pressing on the world to say, first define terror. I mean, that's been, even in his speech in UN, he has talked about it. First, let us come to agree what is terror. So that is the primary concern that India has been talking about whenever it gets an opportunity.
And trying to get that convention the international
ratified.
convention as well.
Yeah, so that's the one stream where India has always been. In that context, other things crop in, because you've taken a line that we need first to come down to an agreement. All countries in the world have to agree, okay, this is terror by definition. So once you agree to that, you move forward. But it's a long haul. It's not going to happen tomorrow, I'm sure. But this is something on which, the path on which we've been going. Secondly, what's important is India has also been talking of de-radicalization. It's whether you talk it of other Gulf countries. If you just look at with Saudi Arabia, there's an issue. In fact, there are reports of Saudi Arabia doing a lot of support to India on the terror front about deportation.
Yes,
of
they've been. There's Abu Jandal, of course, in 2012. That's the biggest catch. But
and
even
also,
in 2015.
if you look at the Gulf area, we've had fairly good success, and there was a good cooperation. Even if you remember, recently we had the UAE visit. There again, the issue of de-radicalization. So it's a couple of issues that we are looking at it differently. While we are saying, okay, we are against, because as Foreign Secretary Shashank said, India has a very long experience of having fought terror in several places and continues to face threat from terror. But at the same time, approach is different. So I think that's one thing we've been talking about. Prime Minister Modi has been talking about in several fora, including the UN. So I think these are the shades which will eventually determine India's approach to how you think the problem should be tackled, rather than other aspects which, I mean, you talked about the coalition. So that's a different concept which it's working differently. And even there are cracks, if one may say. So the Russian approach to IS was not initially agreed to by the Western capitals. But subsequently there was some element of agreement. And now when Russia pulled out from Syria, there are all kinds of reports coming, dumbing down the Russian approach. So these are issues that I think we'll have to wait.
But on the front of de-radicalization, do you think, Shashank, there can be a pitch that may work with diverse interests as far as this entire theme is concerned, such as, say, Brussels and Riyadh?
Well, in Brussels, of course, they would be taking the security route, first of all, because they have to preserve their democracy, at the same time make sure that the democracy is not misused by these radical elements to carry out terrorist activities. In Riyadh's case, of course, the Saudis have taken the lead role in creating some kind of a coalition against the Islamic State, even though on the other hand, they were in the front ranks of trying to change the regime in Syria to make sure that there is some kind of a more acceptable regime available there, and which really provided the opportunity for the Islamic State to acquire large parts of territories in both Iraq and Syria. India's approach has been slightly different because it's more educational, more reformist, more. We have also held recently the World Sufi Conference, which tried to give an idea that there are other streams in Islam which should not be forgotten about and which also need to be emphasized. And it's not just the one exclusivist approach, which is
so there is
emphasized.
That view of moderate Islam vis-a-vis the more orthodox one.
Well, there are so many issues in Syria and Iraq for which one cannot clearly say that Islamic State terrorists and recruiting agents, they are fighting only against other religions or against people belonging to different streams of Islam. Because there are other issues relating to the national sentiments and the regional sentiments and all kinds of things. In the case of India, since we have a very large Islamic community and we know that many of those people don't give any support to the Islamic State. In fact, we have the lowest number of recruits who have gone on their own volition to join the Islamic State compared
and Belgium
to thousands
has
of
the
people.
highest per capita.
Belgium has the highest number, with reference to its small population. And other Western countries also have done that. So there is a question of social cohesion, providing opportunities for jobs and all kinds of achieving their own ambitions.
So what we can perhaps expect is that there's some thought process going in that direction as to how to tackle this issue of de-radicalization. We'll talk about the strip further. We're taking a short break at this point. We'll talk about the other aspects of it as well, where we're promoting India, as well as the fact that you want to get in more investments and get more trade going in this phase of economic challenges that the world is facing as well. Taking a very short break at this point. Stay tuned for more.
बहुत बहुत बधाई हो, आपने अपने बच्चों को पोलियो से बचा लिया। लेकिन जब तक दुनिया में पोलियो का एक भी केस है, पोलियो का खतरा बना हुआ है। इसीलिए अब सरकार देश में पोलियो इंजेक्शन की शुरुआत कर रही है, ताकि आपके बच्चे को मिले डबल सुरक्षा। अब अपने 1 साल से छोटे बच्चे को टीकाकरण सत्र में पोलियो की तीसरी खुराक के साथ जरूर दिलवाएं पोलियो का इंजेक्शन। क्यों राधा, इससे क्या होगा पता है ना?
हाँ दीदी, पोलियो से डबल सुरक्षा हमेशा के लिए।
याद रहे, पोलियो की तीसरी खुराक के साथ जरूर दिलवाएं पोलियो का इंजेक्शन।
अधिक जानकारी के लिए अपने पास के स्वास्थ्य केंद्र, एएनएम या आशा दीदी से संपर्क करें।
मैं अमिताभ बच्चन आज आपके सामने वो कहने जा रहा हूं जो मैंने पहले कभी नहीं कहा। मैं एक रोगी, हेपेटाइटिस बी का रोगी। 1982 में कुली फिल्म की शूटिंग के दौरान मेरे साथ एक दुर्घटना हुई। ऑपरेशन करवाना पड़ा और मेरे शरीर में 60 बोतल खून चढ़ाया गया। खून का कोई एक सैंपल हेपेटाइटिस बी इन्फेक्टेड था, जो मेरे लिवर तक पहुंच गया। कई सालों बाद आम जांच के दौरान जब इसका पता चला, तो मुझे यह भी पता चला कि मेरा 1/4 लिवर ही बचा हुआ है। लेकिन सही इलाज के बाद आज मैं आपके सामने खड़ा हूं और काम कर रहा हूं। हेपेटाइटिस बी से बचने का पहला उपाय है शिशु के जन्म पर पहला टीका लगवाएं और पहले साल में 3 और नियमित टीके लगवाएं। ये आपका पहला कदम होना चाहिए। मुफ्त टीकाकरण के लिए अपने पास के स्वास्थ्य केंद्र जाएं और पूरी जानकारी लें। देखिए, ये जो हेपेटाइटिस बी है, इससे हम डरेंगे नहीं, लड़ेंगे।
ये चांदनी का चौक है।
ये रविंद्र का सेतु है।
मारीना का बीच है
ये आजाद का मैदान है।
खड़े सिंह दा मार गया।
चित्तरंजन का एवेन्यू है ये।
अन्ना का नगर यही है।
गंगा की है ये नदी।
ये लक्ष्मी की कॉलोनी है।
बंकिम का स्ट्रीट है ये। नरीमन का पॉइंट है ये। और मैं तुम्हें इसे
गंदा नहीं करने दूंगा।
यहाँ कचरा
नहीं फेंकने दूंगी।
पान नहीं थूकने दूंगा।
केले का छिलका
नहीं फेंकने दूंगी।
अगर एक बार 125 करोड़ देशवासी तय कर ले कि मैं गंदगी नहीं करूंगा, तो दुनिया की कोई ताकत नहीं है जो हिंदुस्तान को गंदा कर सके।
स्वच्छ भारत, एक कदम स्वच्छता की ओर।
आज मेरा एग्जाम है।
अच्छा होगा डेविड, गुड लक।
आज रिजल्ट आएगा।
बेस्ट ऑफ लक।
इस बार क्लास में फर्स्ट आया है डेविड और सेकंड आई है रिया, थर्ड है असलम।
कांग्रेस। पर अब क्या हुआ डेविड?
मुझे आगे पढ़ना है, पर पापा कहते हैं पैसे नहीं है।
पैसे नहीं है, वो देखो।
प्री मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप स्कीम।
प्री मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप अल्पसंख्यक समुदाय के उन बच्चों के लिए है जिनकी सालाना पारिवारिक आय 1 लाख रुपए से कम है और जिन्होंने पिछली कक्षाओं में 50% अंक प्राप्त किए हैं, और लड़कियों के लिए 30% स्कॉलरशिप निर्धारित है। अधिक जानकारी के लिए लॉग इन करें www.minorityAffairs.gov.in पर या कॉल करें टोल फ्री नंबर 1800112001 पर। सबका साथ, सबका विकास।
आप सबने दुनिया भर में क्या मिसाल बनाई है, जिस सफाई से आपने कचरा वहीं फेंक दिया। और मन्नू आंटी क्या कूड़ा फेंकती हैं, ओलंपिक्स के गोला फेंकने वाले भी शर्मा जाएं। और ये देखिए, लक्ष्मी भाभी की सफाई तो गांव-गांव में प्रसिद्ध है। हमारे सुखिया भैया मन की करते, जहां सोचा वहीं शौच कर दिया। ये देश जो आप ही का घर है, उसे क्यों गंदा करते हैं? थोड़ी शर्म कर लो, सोच स्वच्छ कर लो।
अगर एक बार 125 करोड़ देशवासी तय कर लें कि मैं गंदगी नहीं करूंगा, तो दुनिया की कोई ताकत नहीं है जो हिंदुस्तान को गंदा कर सकती है।
स्वच्छ भारत, एक कदम स्वच्छता की ओर।
किशोर अवस्था हम सब की जिंदगी का बहुत ही अहम पड़ाव होता है, जिसमें हम सब बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण शारीरिक और मानसिक बदलावों से गुजरते हैं। इस उम्र में खून की कमी यानी अनीमिया काफी आम है, जिसके कारण कमजोरी, चिड़चिड़ापन और थकान जैसी शिकायतें आती हैं। सप्ताह में एक बार IFA की नीली गोली लेना किशोर अवस्था में विकास के लिए सहायक होता है। ये नीली गोली शासकीय शालाओं, आंगनबाड़ी केंद्रों और शासकीय स्वास्थ्य संस्थाओं में निशुल्क मिलती है। मैं आशा करती हूँ कि आप सब किशोर और किशोरियां साप्ताहिक IFA की इस नीली गोली का सेवन जरूर करेंगे।
Welcome back. We're talking about the Prime Minister's three-nation tour. He's leaving on the 30th, first to Brussels and then to Washington, D.C. and then after that Riyadh. Shashank, we were talking about terrorism. Now let's talk about what are the other issues that could be taken up with Brussels, because this is an India-EU summit as well, and then a bilateral meeting with the Belgian Prime Minister as well. You did talk about that agreement on trade that has been pending for a long time, the broad-based agreement.
The Europeans have a similar concern which Indians have, that once the TPP, this Trans-Pacific Partnership, has been signed and is likely to be ratified soon, and President Obama is very keen that before he leaves, it should be ratified by most of the member countries. So this will hurt the trading interests of a country like India, as well as the European Union, because the European Union is negotiating its own transatlantic investment and trade partnership with the United States, and that has not made much headway.
Yes.
On the other
That's what
hand,
they say about ours as well.
India has been negotiating
It's been
the
on since
RCEP,
2007.
the regional cooperation plan for Asia, and that has also not been making progress. Firstly, India itself was not very clear whether it was willing to give these kind of preferences to a country like China and many other members of the RCEP. But now that they know very clearly that either on one hand they join the TPP and undertake very onerous obligations for investments and for trading, opening practically all their markets and undertaking various kind of obligations for giving favorable rights to the foreign multinationals.
Right.
So therefore they are now thinking more in terms of RCEP, but RCEP is also moving very slowly. And so therefore there would be a mutuality of interest with the European Union and India, and they would try to see that if their free trade area agreement can be expedited, and whatever are the low-hanging fruits, if they can capture them and at least get going, so that the effect on their industry and their trading would not be that much as would be otherwise taking place from 2017.
And KV, what about what can be achieved in Riyadh in terms of already we have excellent economic ties with Riyadh. We import a fifth of our oil from there, the largest amount of oil we import from Saudi Arabia. But apart from that, there are lots of other spaces of increased cooperation that can be sought as well, because there's a huge diaspora as well over there, 30 lakh people almost from India in Saudi Arabia.
I think the biggest problem that India right now faces, if not a problem, but an issue that we are staring at the face, is the issue of workers. Because you mentioned 30 lakhs, but because of the Nitakat rules which kicked in earlier, there was an issue, registration came in. And very recently, Saudi Arabia is tightening norms for employment.
Saudi Arabia gave a waiver at that time.
No, there was a waiver, but it had to be regularized. And now, because of the oil prices coming down and Saudi Arabian economy not in the same generating the same kind of revenue as it did in the past. Unemployment rates is as high as 11%, I'm told. Now, if it's that high, very recently there was a order where a certain amount of jobs were to be preserved for Saudi youth.
Okay.
Now that means, for instance, a mobile market where Indians are very high if you're selling a mobile phone in a shop. So all those will start getting affected. Now this is something we'll have to, because if you have 3 million people working there and many of them are sending money back home, so it's something which we need to look at, and I'm sure that's part of the overall architecture. But the other thing is, of course, terror and trade, investments, because Saudi Arabia, in the government of India and Prime Minister Modi is very keen to attract investments into infrastructure. So that's something which he has been pushing through. If you look at the last 2 years, wherever he goes, he's talking of money to be coming to India.
Yeah, he'll be talking about that extensively in Brussels as well.
So I think these are the 2-3 areas. Of course, we discussed terror, and remember we have a strategic partnership with Riyadh.
Yes.
We had a Riyadh declaration. Before that, we have a Delhi declaration.
Yes.
So there are.
In fact, Riyadh is looking to even perhaps elevate this tie-up to another level.
Yeah. So I think these are the areas where they are built, and it's a multi-layered engagement. It's not just limited to 1 or 2 fields. It's a wider area of cooperation. So I think this is the area which, but as I mentioned, the issue of labor is something that.
Well, let's hope there's significant progress on that front as well. We're completely out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we'll have to wait and see how it really pans out as far as the Prime Minister's 3-nation tour is concerned. We'll keep you updated on all the latest. It begins on the 30th. Stay tuned for more to DD News.